Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. It's so nice to see you again after a little bit of a break. There have been so many things happening in the past 2 weeks since I did my last show, so I will try to give a summary of the most important things that we have missed. Actually, when I think about what happened in China recently, the first phrase coming to my mind is doomsday madness. Why do I say so? I will show you right away. On August the 4th, the CCP's mouthpiece Xinhua published a long editorial titled The 7 Sins of the U.S. Allied System. The editorial is over 20,000 words long and was published as an editorial without an author name. This means the editorial is the official stance of the CCP. The editorial uses the most aggressive and nasty language to attack the 7 sins of the U.S. and its allies, and the 7 sins include: number 1, violence. It says the U.S. has been killing all the time since its establishment and is responsible for countless lives that were killed in all the wars started by the U.S. and its allies. Number 2, robbery. The article says that the history of the Western countries is a history of a small number of people robbing the majority of the people in the world. Number 3, violation of international laws and human rights. Number 4, sabotaging other countries. Number 5, telling lies. Number 6, covering up for its allies. And number 7, fighting among themselves. I don't quite understand why this can be a sin as well. When I first read this article, the first reaction was, it felt to me like that the CCP was ready to declare war against the US and its allies. Otherwise, why did it make such a fuss and write such a long editorial with the most extreme tone and words? You know, whenever the CCP wants to launch a big campaign, a war, or a big action, it always launches a public opinion war first. If it wants to target somebody or some organizations, it always ruins that person or that organization's reputation first with a public opinion war. We've observed this again and again, especially in the persecution of Falun Gong starting in 1999. The second reaction of mine was, the CCP must be frightened to death about the possibility of being held accountable for the CCP virus pandemic. It knows how many lives the virus has killed and how many damage it has brought to the world. So it is scared to death about being held accountable. Let's see some other crazy media attacks by the CCP. Let's show pictures too, yes. So this is a screenshot of a China Central TV CCTV report about how the US has won itself number 1 titles in 8 different areas. So actually, the CCP's English mouthpiece, the Global Times, has translated and tweeted about the 8 number 1 titles of the US. So you can see that the CCP says the US is the number 1 anti-pandemic failure country, number 1 in blaming others, number 1 in spreading the pandemic, number 1 in creating political division, number 1 in issuing an extra amount of currency, number 1 chaos country during the pandemic, number 1 disinformation country, number 1 origin tracing terrorism country, etc. You might wonder what origin tracing terrorism country is. The CCP means if you want to investigate the origin of the CCP virus, you are a terrorist country. You are practicing terrorism. Isn't that ridiculous? Whoever talks about investigating the origin of the CCP virus is a terrorist in the CCP's eyes. This means the CCP is scared to death about anyone's intention to hold it accountable for the CCP virus. Now let's see another Xinhua commentary in English. Washington is committing crimes against humanity. I felt it was so ridiculous that as a regime that has committed so many crimes against humanity, the CCP is condemning the US for committing crimes against humanity because the US failed to control the pandemic. The CCP never admits that the entire world is suffering now because the virus was leaked or released from the Wuhan lab and because the CCP covered up the pandemic in the first place. Now let's watch a video of how a CCTV host is talking about this issue. Please make sure you read the English titles added by me.
今天，国内3家智库联合发布了一份揭露美国抗疫真相的研究报告。在我看来美国抗疫就是3个不：一是不说实话，对待信息，美国政府要么选择性失明，要么习惯性失智。对内是遮遮掩掩，对外是指指点点。二是不干正事儿，政客当道，一条人命抵不过一张选票，急着挽救股市，却不着急抢救病人。连美国专家都在怒斥，这就是屠杀。三是不讲武德，美国一边放松疫情管控，向外输送新冠病毒，另一边打着病毒溯源的旗号，大肆滋生溯源恐怖主义的政治病毒。在这儿要奉劝美国政客，疫情面前别造谣，别作妖，更别想高高挂起，携手合作才是唯一的出路。
Did you notice how this host is also talking about the US is breeding the political virus of origin tracing terrorism? So if you want to investigate the origin of the CCP virus, you are not only practicing origin tracing terrorism, but also breeding a political virus. Interestingly enough, after attacking the US for creating lies, behaving like a demon, and washing its hands of getting the pandemic under control, the host threatens that the only way out for the US is to work together with the CCP. I really don't understand what kind of reasoning or logic is behind this. Misinformation about the origin of the CCP virus is not the only one. Let's watch another video about the recent talks between the US Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman and the CCP officials in Tianjin City in China.
中方的外交的一些跟美国打交道的手法是不是已经改变了？
所谓史无前例，就是说这次是中国给美国人先提出一大堆条件，你来中国了。是你来有求于我，不要忘记舍曼这次来天津之行是搞了好多个月，他提出好多次，中方一直想把他推掉，根本不接受他。然后他说我一定要来，开始说我们要见更高级的官员，我们说不行，没有时间，见不了你更高级官员。他说那我也坚持一定要来，一定要来谈。那就是这样的情况下才让他来，才把他放到天津来去谈一下。这些都是一种象征，可惜美国人确实比较迟钝愚钝。美国人对中国人给他标出来的各种各样的迹象，他其实或者是不想理解，或者是根本理解不了，所以最后才出现这样的结果。结果来了以后就给你发了条件，你先考虑考虑，这是我们给你设的底线，我们给你设的条件。你如果想继续改善中美关系的话，或者你要有求于我帮你解决这些问题的话，你先满足我这条件，否则的话免谈。
Okay, I don't know what Joe Biden and Wendy Sherman will think after watching this. You might think that it is ridiculous, but many Chinese people are brainwashed by this sort of propaganda and think that the CCP is doing well. Yesterday I called my mother in China and told her that I had just come back from Florida. She became so worried immediately and told me that the pandemic situation was so bad in the US that many new cases are breaking out every day and this many people have died, etc. So I shouldn't have traveled at all. She said I should try to stay at home all the time. I felt so helpless when seeing that my own mother's mind was filled with the CCP propaganda. She watches CCTV every day. I know very well about the situation in the US, but she just thinks that I know nothing. The CCP knows very well that a lie can become the truth after it is repeated 1,000 times. Also, there is a Chinese term 搅浑水, which means to muddy the water. It vividly describes the scenario that when you want to find something in the water, someone stirs up the mud at the bottom of the pool, so you can't see through the muddy water, nor can you find out what you want to find. So that's exactly what the CCP is trying to do. Although it knows that it cannot fool everybody with its lies and misinformation, it believes that if it shouts out loud enough and creates and repeats enough lies, it can waste its enemies' time and resources and delay the process of people's truth-finding efforts. So that's why the CCP is creating those shameless lies. It wants to delay its own death. Also, I must admit that I kind of agree with the CCP professor in the video who says that Americans are slow and dumb. Maybe it is not ordinary Americans who are slow and dumb, but the American politicians and the elites who fail to see a variant outbreak has appeared in many cities in China. Let's watch a few videos first. So you can see this is people nailing the door shut so that no one can get out. The louder speaker is saying nobody can get out. If you get out, we will nail your door. See? They completely nailed your door shut, so nobody can get out at all. So this is somewhere in China. Yeah, this is also saying nobody can get out. If you get out, we will nail your door. So yeah, this is another video also showing people nailing the door shut. The louder speaker says, "Thank you for your cooperation." So the Chinese character says no going out. So I'm not sure when and where this one was shot, but obviously at a quarantine site somewhere in China. You can see the appalling situations at this site. Really poor situation. This one shows a little girl dancing to express thank you to those who are going to sell her inside. You might be astonished by this kind of mindset. Why on earth should she thank those people who are going to lock her in her home? But in CCP's China, this is regarded as the staff members doing a great job in combating the pandemic, so people should be grateful. As the CCP never reports the truth about the pandemic, we really don't know how serious the situation really is. But this is what we do know. In China, more than 1.62 billion doses of CCP virus vaccine had been administered by the end of July. China has only 1.39 billion people, or much less. So we can say that the level of vaccination is very high, but this hasn't prevented the virus from spreading. Also, 22 out of the first 35 local cases in Nanjing City were among employees of the Nanjing Lukou International Airport, which belongs to Eastern Airports Group. According to Eastern Airports, as of May 12th, the total number of employees vaccinated was over 9,000, representing a vaccination rate of over 90%. So, a vaccination rate of more than 90% didn't work. I guess that's why more and more countries are abandoning Chinese vaccines. On August 10th, the Chinese National Health Commission announced a new high for the current round of the CCP virus daily infections, with 108 local COVID-19 patients among the 143 new cases registered over the previous day. This is the first time the CCP has announced over 100 daily cases in over a year. Although the CCP's numbers are not to be trusted, the fact that the number is going up indicates that the outbreak is getting worse. A while ago, a Chinese doctor, Zhang Wenhong, said that we must learn to coexist with the virus, which means the virus won't go away in a short period of time and people must find ways to deal with this situation. Immediately after this, the CCP's former health minister Gao Fu came out to say that it is absolutely unacceptable to promote the idea of coexisting with the virus. He said, we need to completely eliminate the virus by stopping the virus outside China and let the virus be eliminated in the sea of a people's war. Why did Gao Fu say this? Because Xi Jinping has said that he himself was in charge of the pandemic control and prevention job, and the CCP has been boasting its achievement in the pandemic control and prevention to prove that the CCP's system is better than other countries. Let's watch a few more videos about how the CCP manages to eliminate the virus. Terrifying, isn't it? When I tweeted this video, I asked people to turn down their volume first. People told me this is forced vaccination in China, but it looks like more to me like forced CCP virus or COVID-19 testing to me. So now let's play video 8. So people also said this is also forced vaccination, although it looks like forced testing for me. You can see so many people pressing this poor old man down, and someone is getting, which I think, getting some samples from him on the ground. So it doesn't matter whether it's forced vaccination or forced testing. It's forced against people's will. No human rights, no human dignity at all. People are treated like this in CCP's China. And they are boasting about their achievement of pandemic control and eliminating the virus. This is the way they are eliminating the virus. Poor old man. They finished their job. People are treated worse than animals.
给社区打电话。
So this is another video. Basically, this woman says that he finds her home sealed upon returning home after going out for a meal. She says the community workers didn't call or notify her and just sealed her door. She doesn't have any outsiders in her home and is very upset about this, etc. So now let's see another news report. Basically, this report in Chinese says that the CCP's model of pandemic control is challenged as all hotels in Yangzhou City that are used as quarantine sites are overwhelmed. People are now sent to other cities to be quarantined. So what is the CCP's model of pandemic control? When they find only a few new cases, they force everybody in the city to do testing, or they force people to receive vaccines like we just watched in the videos. They lock people at home if they are suspected of having made contact with infected people. They use big data to monitor everyone. They use a so-called health code to control everyone. They force the entire society to sacrifice freedom to try to contain and eliminate the virus. They never care about human rights or any sort of rights at all. And if they can't eliminate the virus, they will stop reporting the new cases, cover up the real situation, and let the people die if they are infected. So that is the CCP's model of pandemic control and prevention. Many Chinese people, as well as people from other countries, still believe that the CCP is doing well with controlling the pandemic. Is that really the case? And so how will all this end? We will have to wait and see. Okay, that's all I want to say for today. Now let's see if there are any questions and comments from you guys. Let me check. Wow, we have a lot of comments I missed. So, Christian VH says, all those 7 things that the CCP accused the West of, CCP does them themselves. Massive amounts of projecting there. Yes, I kind of agree. When I read about those, I also thought, oh, the CCP might be talking about itself. So lecture CLAT says CCP equals #1 country with a fat bear in charge. Okay, that's funny. Let's see if we have any questions. So Brian Boyd asked, how did you feel making this video to share with everyone? Yes, I feel it is very important to expose and to reveal what's happening in China, because as we saw in my last video, foreign journalists in China are either blocked from reporting from the ground or are attacked even by local CCP members or staff or people who were brainwashed by the CCP. So now I think most of the time we really rely on ordinary citizens in China to record what they see, what they hear about what's happening, and try, like for me, because I understand Chinese, so I think it is my responsibility to translate those informations into English, so to make sure so everybody knows what exactly is happening in China. Like what we've seen in this pandemic, everything I think that is happening in the world in China is related to everyone else in the world. So we do need to watch very closely what's happening in China to make, I think, correct decisions how we can go from here. So Ben D later said, "Thank you, Jennifer. I always wondered if some of these videos were staged, but it makes sense that the CCP would be proud of this method." I'm not quite sure whether they are staged. For me, they look very real. They don't have the motivation to stage such kind of videos, because these videos show, I think, the very terrible side of the CCP, treating people like animals. But because nowadays everyone has a cell phone, so when things happen, they may have the opportunity to record it and try to upload it on social media platforms. So some of them got leaked, but I think the CCP is still monitoring very, very closely about everything that is shared, especially inside China on Chinese media platforms. If they think this video is doing too much damage, they will try to delete them. But sometimes, people download them from this Chinese social media platform and then re-upload it on YouTube, Twitter, that are not controlled by the CCP. That's how we can get to watch some of the first-hand videos from China. So Royal, that beautiful baked bean footage says human rights are violated. Yes, that is exactly so. Christine VH says this is brutal and disgusting. Sure, people should get vaccinated, but it shouldn't be done by manhandling and holding people down on the floor. Yes, and Harris Singh Nayaga says, awesome report, Mrs. Zeng. The CCP regime really cares for the Chinese people's dignity. Or maybe he said doesn't care. Okay, seems there's another place. By a question by Brain Boyd, there must be not netizens uprising in the country, but what do you replace the CCP with? Can old America take its place? I think there are so many very good and talented people in China now that is, I think, suppressed by the CCP. As long as the CCP goes, I never worried that the China will fall into chaos, as the CCP has been trying to threaten the world, especially threaten, I think, blackmail the Western governments. Say, if you let me go, China will fall into chaos and everybody will suffer and die, and you will have massive amount of refugees coming, flooding your country. That was, I think, some of the, you can say, threat crafted by the CCP to threat the world to not try to take down the CCP. I think that is a very, very big lie. The CCP, the Chinese people, I think, before the CCP came into power, China had a history of 5,000 years of civilization. It was once the most splendid and most rich, most, I think, civilized culture and country in the world. I think there are enough amount of good and talented Chinese people who can take care of themselves. Actually, for over all these years when the CCP was in power, every sort of disaster, every sort of chaos was created by the CCP, not by any other group or any other ordinary Chinese people. So we should never worry what can China do if we don't have the CCP there. Actually, all the misfortunes in the recent several decades were created by the CCP. So that's my understanding. So seems we've gone through all this. Oh, Delta Saki have donated $20 to me. Thank you so much. I do need any support that you can give, as we all know that YouTube has been suppressing my channel, I think, very heavily, as well as other social media platforms. So I do need your wonderful support to carry on what I'm doing. So Moonwalker, do you think Hong Kong is lost forever to the CCP? I'm not sure whether it's forever, but as long as the CCP is there, it seems the situation in Hong Kong is very, very worrying. Like we shared some situations in Hong Kong before. Actually, this afternoon I just did a talk to a rhetoric club somewhere in another state, asking me to talk about the situation in Hong Kong. Yeah, we've seen the last bit of freedom with the media has gone, with one of the only two independent media, Apple Daily, shut down by the Hong Kong government, and another one, the Epoch Times, has also under very severe pressure with their print machines, print factories, I think, sabotaged by the CCP thugs, and its reporter be physically assaulted, attacked by the CCP thugs. So I think Hong Kong gave us a very, very example what will happen if we trust the CCP's words and promises. The CCP promised that it will maintain the freedom of Hong Kong for at least 50 years. Now only less than half of 50 years has passed. Hong Kong has become, I think, a dead seat in terms of freedom. Many people are trying to leave Hong Kong, and the CCP, I think they doesn't care. It actually promoted a slogan long ago: we will keep the island without keeping the people. They don't care people of Hong Kong leaving, or they don't care if they kill them to get rid of those freedom-loving people, because freedom is a great threat to the CCP. So I think the situation in Hong Kong is very much worrying. So the free world should learn the lesson from what's happened in Hong Kong and never ever trust anything that the CCP is saying or promising. And I think before, if we can get rid of the CCP soon, I think Hong Kong will of course gain back its freedom. And let's pray that will happen as soon as possible, and before any more disasters, misfortunes happen to the beautiful people of Hong Kong. So Nasir Nagava says, time for the CCP regime brainwashing machine in Hong Kong education system. In a few decades, the people of Hong Kong won't know about Tiananmen Square massacre anymore. Yes, that is also very worrying. This afternoon, I actually show a video I think I shared back in 2019 about a CCP general called Xu Yan, talking about how the CCP is so upset about people, students in Hong Kong are still using the old textbooks from the British education system, and they need to take over the education, the textbook, the school first. Now I think the CCP has already started asking Hong Kong, the school in Hong Kong adopting their textbooks, and some school, I saw some videos of even kindergarten kids starting or sing CCP songs, or studying CCP stuff, and also raising CCP flags even in the kindergartens. I think the CCP knows very well, after maybe only less than 2 decades, if they can control the education system, the old generation will die out, and the younger generation will no longer know what is freedom anymore, and they can turn these people into their slaves, like what they do to the people in China. So that is very worrying. That is another reason why we should fight harder against the CCP's control. Thank you very much, Dr. Saki. Thank you so much. So I think we've pretty much responded to the questions I can see here, and I've talked about 35 minutes. So how did it, so Letma Theresa asked Jennifer, how did it go in Florida? Oh yes, I was invited by Young Americans for Liberty to give a speech at their annual conference in Florida. I talk about so the title of my speech is Surviving a Labor Camp, One Woman's Fight for Freedom with Jennifer Zeng. So I mainly talk about my experience back in China, being incarcerated in the labor camp for 1 year because of my belief in Falun Gong, and what I am seeing in the US. So, the audience raised a lot of questions about China, how the US should deal with China, and I responded to them. So overall, it was a very, very successful speech. The students, the young people, I'm very heartened to see the young people are seeking the truth, are seeking out for my comments about what I see in America and how I respond or comment about issues in America. So they responded very warmly. I got 2 standing ovation, one after I finished my speech, one after I finished my Q&A session. So that was very, very good. And there are still other people trying to get me to their school to give some more lectures in the future. So we'll see how that goes. So seems we've talked for about 40 minutes now. Maybe we'll wrap up here. So thank you so much for Delta Sky. I'm not sure whether I got your name correct. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. Thank you so much for your wonderful, wonderful support. And I do hope we can fight this fight together in the future. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you. See you on next Monday.